Hello, curious minds, and welcome to a journey back to the very dawn of existence. Before time itself had a name, before light chased shadow, or land emerged from water, the Norse peoples envisioned a beginning so stark, so elemental, we're about to explore a creation myth unlike any other. A tale woven from fire and ice, cosmic giants and emergent gods that laid the foundation for Valhalla, Ragnarök, and everything in between. But before we plunge into the Ginnungagap, I'm genuinely curious. Where in the world are you tuning in from? And what time is it as you join us on this epic voyage? Drop a comment below. It's fascinating to see how far these ancient stories reach across time and space. Now let us begin at the absolute zero point of the Norse cosmos, before there was land or sea or sky. Before gods walked, or giants roared, or even the faintest whisper of wind stirred the air, there was only the Ginnungagap. Imagine, if you can, a void so vast, so utterly profound, that it defied all comprehension. Not merely empty space, devoid of matter, but a boundless, yawning chasm, a primordial nothingness from which everything, and yet nothing, truly existed. The very name, Ginnungagap, in Old Norse, speaks to this cosmic emptiness. A gaping abyss, or perhaps even a magically charged void, holding dormant potential within its limitless expanse. It was the absolute silence before the greatest symphony of creation could ever begin. A terrifying concept, perhaps, to dwell on such pure non-existence, but it was within this very void, between the impossible extremes, that the first stirrings of life, and indeed the entire Norse cosmos, would slowly, dramatically, begin to materialize. For this wasn't an empty void in isolation. Flanking this great silent chasm were two distinct and ancient realms, diametrically opposed, yet intrinsically linked to the coming act of creation. To the south blazed Muspelheim, the land of scorching heat and blazing fire. Here, this was no ordinary flame. It was a realm of primordial, unquenchable fire, radiating a heat so intense, so dazzling, that no living being not native to its fiery essence could ever hope to endure its frontier. Muspelheim was eternal, existing long before the earth, a vibrant, active force of pure, destructive energy. Its very air shimmered with incandescent light, and from its depths, sparks and embers constantly flew off into the vast Ginnungagap, hints of the fiery potential it held. And standing sentinel at its searing border was Surtur, the Black One, the greatest and most ancient of the fire giants. Wielding a sword of pure flame that shone brighter than the sun itself, Surtur was not just a guardian of this scorching land. He was a destined force, foretold to one day ride forth from Muspelheim, leading his fiery kin across the broken Bifrost Bridge, to engulf the entire world in a cleansing, apocalyptic blaze during Ragnarök. Even at the dawn of time, the seeds of destruction were intertwined with creation, embodied in this scorching realm and its fiery warden. This primordial fire was not just a destructive force, but also a vital, transformative energy, providing the very heat necessary for change. And to the north, stretching into an equally infinite expanse, lay Niflheim, the land of primordial mist, ice, and biting cold. This was the antithesis of Muspelheim, a realm of profound stillness and ancient bone-chilling frost. Its depths were shrouded in perpetual fog, its landscapes carved from endless glaciers and dark, frozen rivers. At the very heart of Niflheim, amidst its icy, shadowy expanses, lay the ancient well of Ymir. Its name, often translated as bubbling, boiling spring or roaring cauldron, might seem contradictory for a realm of ice. But it was from this powerful primal spring that all the icy rivers known as the Oliviga, the ice waves eternally flowed. These weren't just rivers, they were currents of primordial venomous ice, coursing with a frosty, infused energy. As they flowed ever further from Rövomir, extending into the Ginnungagap, their substance would gradually harden, forming vast, venomous glaciers and layers of rhyme. Beneath one of the roots of the world tree, Vrugolmir would also become the home of the dragon Nethurga, forever gnawing at the roots, a symbol of entropy and the ceaseless forces of decay that would perpetually balance creation. For me, Niflheim represented not just barrenness, but the primal state of potential, the unformed matter from which life could eventually coalesce. So, here we have it, the three foundational elements of the Norse cosmos, the vibrant, blazing energy of Muspelheim to the south, the ancient chilling stillness of Niflheim to the north, home to the life-giving yet potentially destructive primordial waters of Ymir, and between them, the boundless, passive expanse of Ginnungagap, awaiting the inevitable, momentous collision. This cosmic interplay of fire and ice, warmth and cold, stillness and activity, was not merely a backdrop. It was the crucible, the very engine of creation, where opposing forces would finally meet, clash, and from their turbulent embrace, birth first glimmer of life. The stage was set for existence to begin. The first stirrings, Ymir and the cosmic cow, the stage was set for existence to begin. Out of the boundless void of Ginnungagap, flanked by the primordial fires of Muspelheim and the ancient ice of Niflheim, a cosmic dance of creation was about to unfold. The immense heat from Muspelheim, driven by an unseen, relentless force, began to creep across the vast emptiness. It moved like a searing breath, reaching, ever so slowly, towards the frigid expanse of Niflheim. In turn, the freezing mist and ice-laden rivers, the Iliviga from Niflheim, began to extend their chilling tendrils into the central chasm, seeking to fill the emptiness. This wasn't an explosion of light and thunder, but a gradual, inexorable encounter. Where the searing heat met the bitter cold, where fire touched ice, a profound transformation occurred. The venomous ice from Niflheim, infused with the primordial essence of Vrugolmir, began to melt. But it didn't just turn to water. From these swirling, dripping drops of it, a life-giving yet also potentially destructive primal substance, unique to this Norse genesis, something colossal began to take shape. Slowly, incrementally, the form of a giant emerged. This was Ymir, the first of all living beings, the progenitor of the frost giants, and the very foundation of the coming world. Ymir was unlike anything that would ever exist again. Colossal in scale, he was a chaotic and self-sufficient being. From his armpits, through his sweat, sprang forth a male and a female. From his legs, one leg copulated with the other, producing another son. This was the spontaneous generation of the first frost giants, born directly from Ymir's own chaotic essence, multiplying rapidly even as Ymir himself lay dormant, vast and uncaring in the melting void. His existence was one of slumbering immensity, but he required sustenance, and the cosmos provided. Alongside Ymir, from the same melting ice and primordial ooze, emerged another being, equally as ancient and fundamental, Audhumla, the cosmic cow. Her name, likely meaning rich horn or nourisher, perfectly described her vital role in this nascent creation. With 4 ruders, each spewing immense rivers of milk, Audhumla provided the sole nourishment for the gargantuan Ymir, sustaining him in his colossal, slumbering state. Her presence was one of quiet bovine majesty, a gentle counterpoint to the chaotic proliferation of Ymir's giant offspring. But Audhumla had her own need. To sustain herself, she began to lick the salt-rimed ice blocks that still filled much of Ginnungagap, tasting the ancient minerals that formed the very fabric of this unformed cosmos. And as she licked, something extraordinary began to happen. Over the course of 3 days, from the salty ice, a new being was slowly revealed. On the first day, only hair emerged from the ice. On the second, a head took shape. And by the end of the 3rd day, a complete figure stood before her, fully formed from the ice. This was Barry, the first of the Æsir gods. He was strong, fair-skinned, and his very existence marked a fundamental shift in the cosmic order. Beri's emergence was significant. Unlike Ymir, who sprang from the primordial venom and gave birth to chaotic giants, Beri was gently licked into existence from the pure, ancient ice by a nourishing creature. He represented the nascent force of order and divine lineage. While Ymir was vast and formless in his proliferation, Beri was singular, defined, and the beginning of a distinct, more structured lineage. The stage wasn't just set for existence. It was now filled with the first actors, the primeval giant, the nourishing cow, and the very first god, unknowingly laying the groundwork for the intricate, often violent, and ultimately cyclical drama of the Norse cosmos. The divine lineage and a fateful decision. Beri, the first god, stood firm in the primordial landscape, a beacon of emerging order amidst the lingering chaos. His existence, gently carved from the ancient ice, marked a distinct shift from the spontaneous, often grotesque, generation of the giants. Beri was a figure of strength and purpose, yet the Norse myths don't dwell extensively on his individual actions. His primary significance lies in his progeny, for he quickly begat a son, Bor. The sagas are somewhat cryptic about how this occurred, whether through a unique divine parthenogenesis or a union unrecorded. But his birth solidifies the lineage of the Æsir gods, setting them apart from the sprawling, numerous frost giants. Bor, in turn, sought a mate, and his choice cemented the interwoven destiny of gods and giants from the very beginning of time. He married Bisla, a daughter of the giant Baldr. This union wasn't just a marriage. It was a cosmic intertwining, a recognition that the forces of order and chaos, creation and destruction, were never truly separate. From the powerful union of Bor and Besla sprang three mighty sons, destined to shape the very fabric of existence: Odin, Vili, and Vi. These were the first of the great Æsir gods, the architects of the world, and their arrival signaled an imminent, dramatic transformation of the cosmos. Now imagine these three young gods, formidable even in their youth, observing the primeval world around them. They saw the colossal, sprawling form of Ymir, forever slumbering, forever generating more giants from his body, his very presence a vast passive, but overwhelming force of primordial chaos. They saw the endless, mist-shrouded expanses of Niflheim and the scorching, untamed fires of Muspelheim, both still pushing into the Ginnungagap. While the world teemed with more and more giants, there was no true structure, no order, no defined space for anything else to truly thrive or evolve. It was an existence dominated by the gargantuan and the formless. The decision made by Odin, Vili, and Vi was monumental, one that would resonate through all of Norse mythology and directly lead to the creation of the world as we know it. They determined that to bring true order, to create a structured cosmos, the ultimate source of the chaos, the primordial giant Ymir, must be overcome. This was not a casual act of violence, but a cosmic necessity, a brutal surgical strike to pave the way for a new reality. The battle that ensued was of unimaginable scale. Picture the three young gods, harnessing their nascent divine powers, confronting the immense, slumbering form of Ymir. The exact details of the conflict are left to the imagination, but the outcome was decisive. With their combined might, Odin, Vili, and Vi succeeded in striking down the immense Ymir. It was an act of profound violence, yet in the Norse worldview, it was also the ultimate act of creation. The death of the primordial giant was not an end, but the very beginning of the structured universe. As Ymir's colossal body fell, the consequences were immediate and cataclysmic. From his veins, a deluge of blood erupted, so vast, so overwhelming, that it became a surging, crimson ocean. This was no ordinary flood. It was a cosmic torrent, drowning almost all of the other frost giants, Ymir's monstrous offspring, who had proliferated across the Ginnungagap. The flood was so absolute that only one giant, Bergelmir, the son of Trudgelmir and grandson of Ymir, managed to escape. Along with his wife, he clambered onto a lover, often translated as a hollowed-out tree trunk or a mill chest, a humble ark amidst the grand destruction. They floated to safety, becoming the sole survivors, the progenitors of all future frost giants. This single detail is crucial, for it ensures the survival of the giants, preserving the ancient lineage that would forever stand in opposition to the gods, a testament to the inescapable intertwining of order and chaos in the Norse cosmos. With Ymir slain and the flood subsiding, the three gods now faced an unprecedented task. The Ginnungagap was no longer just a void. It was filled with the immense lifeless body of the primordial giant and the vast, bloody ocean of his remains. It was from this raw, monumental corpse that they would painstakingly craft the entire cosmos. This act of dismemberment and repurposing was the ultimate creative endeavor, transforming raw, chaotic matter into a structured, livable world. The very ground we walk on, the skies above, the mountains that touch the clouds, all would owe their existence to this single, pivotal act of violence in creation, a testament to the Norse belief that even in destruction lies the potential for new life. The stage was now truly set, not for a birth, but for a grand construction project, using the most unlikely of materials. Crafting the cosmos, from flesh to world, the immense lifeless form of Ymir lay before Odin, Vili, and Vi, a colossal testament to their decisive act. But this was not an ending. It was a beginning of unimaginable scale. With the chaotic force of the primordial giant subdued, the three gods now set about the monumental task of constructing a structured cosmos from his very remains. This was the ultimate act of recycling, turning the raw, undifferentiated matter of a deceased giant into the vibrant living world that would become home to gods, giants, and eventually, humanity. Their work began with the most substantial parts. Ymir's vast, solid flesh became the earth itself, forming the sprawling continents and land masses that would eventually stretch across the cosmos. Imagine the gods, their strength immense, flattening and spreading this primordial substance, shaping the very ground beneath their feet. But a world needs more than just dry land. Ymir's blood, which had just unleashed a catastrophic flood, was contained and transformed, becoming the oceans, lakes, and rivers that would define the world's watery expanses. This vital fluid, once a destructive torrent, now became the life-giving waters that would sustain all future existence. His mighty bones were hoisted and meticulously arranged to become the mountains and crags, towering peaks that would pierce the sky and divide the landscapes. The smaller fragments, his teeth and splintered bone shards, were scattered across the nascent world, forming the countless rocks and pebbles that would litter the land. Every geological feature, from the grandest mountain range to the smallest stone, was thus born from the physical remains of the primordial giant, imbuing the very earth with a deep, ancient, and powerful essence. It was a world quite literally built upon the body of its chaotic ancestor. But a world needs a sky, a vault to contain its new form. Ymir's enormous skull was lifted and placed above the newly formed earth, becoming the vault of the heavens. To hold this colossal dome aloft and prevent it from collapsing, the gods placed four dwarves at its cardinal points: Nordri, north; Sudri, south; Ostri, east; and Vestri, west. These figures, skilled and enduring, eternally stand at the corners of the sky, shouldering the immense weight, ensuring the stability of the cosmic dome. And within that vast skull, Ymir's brain was tossed upwards, shattering into fragments that transformed into the clouds, forever drifting across the sky, bringing rain and shadow to the world below. Now the world had a solid foundation, vast waters, towering mountains, and a celestial dome. But it remained a dark place, illuminated only by the faint, ancient glow of distant Muspelheim. The gods understood that a vibrant world required light, warmth, and the rhythm of time. So they looked to the ultimate source of fire. From the blazing realm of Muspelheim, they gathered the brightest, most brilliant sparks and embers. These fiery motes were then launched into the vast expanse of the newly formed sky, where they became the stars, fixed points of light that would forever adorn the night. The celestial bodies that would mark the passage of day and night, the sun and moon, also needed to be set in motion. In the Norse myth, these weren't simply created from scratch. They were pulled from existing beings. Two children, a boy named Mani, Moon, and a girl named Sol, Sun, born to a mortal man, were so exceptionally beautiful that the gods took them from the world. Mani was appointed to guide the moon across the sky, while Sol was tasked with driving the chariot of the sun. Each day, they would be relentlessly pursued by great wolves. Skirl chasing Sol and Hati chasing Mani. A cosmic chase that establishes the tireless, unyielding passage of time and foreshadows their ultimate fate at Ragnarök. With the sun and moon set on their eternal journeys, the cosmos now had light, darkness, and the steady progression of days and nights, months and seasons. A new order had been meticulously carved out of chaos, transforming the remnants of a primordial giant into a complex, functioning universe. The Æsir gods had not merely created a world, they had engineered a cosmos imbued with a deep-layered significance, where every element held a piece of its ancient, tumultuous past. But a world, no matter how grand, is empty without life to inhabit it. The grand construction was nearing completion, but the most important inhabitants were yet to be found. The first breath, humanity and the shaping of realms. The cosmos was now a vast, intricate tapestry of land, sea, mountains, and sky, all meticulously crafted from the remains of the colossal Ymir. The stars, sun, and moon held their courses, bringing the rhythm of day and night to the nascent world. Quote. Yet for all its grandeur, it remained largely empty, waiting for inhabitants beyond the primal giants and the newly arrived gods. It was in this moment, amidst the quiet beauty of a newly formed coastline, that the Æsir gods would embark on their most profound act of creation, the bringing forth of humankind. One day, Odin, Vili, and Ve, the very gods who had sculpted the world from Ymir's body, walked along a lonely seashore. There, cast up by the tide, they discovered two tree trunks. These were not just any trees. They held a dormant potential, a subtle resonance with the life that was yet to be. One was an ash tree, the other an elm. Seeing their form, the gods recognized them as the perfect vessels for new life, beings that would populate the fertile lands of Midgard. Each god bestowed a unique gift upon these silent, wooden forms. Odin, the Allfather, gave them breath and life, animating the trunks with a vital spark. Vili granted them reason and motion, bestowing the ability to think, to move, and to act. And Ve gave them senses and speech, enabling them to perceive the world around them, to see, hear, smell, taste, and touch, and to communicate their thoughts and feelings. From these simple tree trunks, shaped by divine will and imbued with these essential qualities, sprang forth the first man, Ask, meaning ash, and the first woman, Imbla, meaning Elmulva. This was the birth of humanity, not from clay or a single divine breath, but from the sturdy, rooted essence of trees, symbolizing a deep connection to the natural world. They were given the realm of Midgard to inhabit, a sprawling domain specifically designed and protected for them. Midgard, which translates to Middle-earth, was envisioned as a fortified enclosure, separating the human world from the chaotic, untamed lands of the giants. To protect humanity from the surviving frost giants in Jotunheim, the gods painstakingly constructed a vast, impenetrable fence around Midgard. This formidable barrier was ingeniously fashioned from the very eyebrows of Ymir, a grim yet effective testament to the gods' commitment to protecting their new creations. But the gods' efforts extended beyond just humanity and Midgard. They also gave structure and place to the other emerging beings and forces, establishing the 9 worlds connected by the mighty Yggdrasil, the world tree. This colossal ash tree, whose branches spread across the heavens and whose roots delved into the deepest realms, became the Axis Mundi, the cosmic center and connector of all existence. One of its roots reached into Niflheim, touching the ancient well of Ymir, where the dragon Nidhögr gnawed. Another stretched to Jotunheim, beside the well of Mimir, source of wisdom. And a third extended to Asgard, protected by the Norns. Yggdrasil symbolized the interconnectedness of all realms, a living, breathing testament to the Norse understanding of a universe held in intricate balance. Within this grand structure, the gods also cast a potent, chaotic force that had emerged from Loki, the Midgard serpent, Jörmungandr. This immense serpent was cast into the ocean that encircled Midgard. There, it grew to such an enormous size that it eventually encircled the entire world, biting its own tail, a symbol of endlessness, but also a formidable, ever-present threat to Midgard's safety. Its presence was a constant reminder that even in the newly ordered cosmos, chaos and danger lurked, eternally waiting for the destined time of reckoning. Thus, the Norse cosmos was fully articulated. From the primordial clash of fire and ice, through the brutal creation from a giant's body, to the gentle shaping of humanity from trees, and the establishment of distinct realms, the world was now complete. But this was not a static creation. From the very beginning, the seeds of conflict were sown, and the Norse people knew that this carefully constructed order, beautiful as it was, held within it the inevitability of its own dramatic, fiery, and ultimately cyclical end. The Æsir and Vanir, tribes of the gods in the First War. The Norse cosmos was now complete, a 9-tiered structure held together by the mighty Yggdrasil, teeming with newly created life and vibrant, distinct realms. The Æsir gods, led by Odin, Vili, and Ve, had brought order from chaos, but their dominion was not absolute, nor were they the only divine powers in existence. For across the cosmic tapestry, another, older tribe of gods had long resided, the Vanir. Unlike the Æsir, who embodied warrior prowess, justice, and kingship, the Vanir were deeply connected to fertility, nature, wisdom, and prosperity. They were ancient deities of the earth, the sea, and the seasons, revered for their mystical knowledge and their ability to grant good harvests, calm waters, and abundant wealth. Their primary realm was Vanaheima, Vanir home, a place of serene beauty, lush landscapes, and deep, often secret, magical practices. While the Æsir were often seen as rulers, the Vanir were nurturers and enchanters. For a time, the two tribes of gods existed separately, unaware of the profound conflict that would soon erupt between them, a conflict that would shatter the primordial peace and forever alter the divine hierarchy. The catalyst for this unprecedented war was a mysterious Vanir sorceress named Gullveig, whose name means gold, might, or gold greed. She journeyed to Asgard, the realm of the Æsir, and there she displayed her mastery over gold and magic, seemingly corrupting the Æsir with a newfound avarice. 3 times, the Æsir attempted to kill her, piercing her with spears and burning her in Odin's hall. But each time Gullveig miraculously rose from the ashes, reborn and unharmed, showcasing the potent, ancient magic of the Vanir. The Æsir, enraged by her perceived insolence and the disruptions she caused, demanded that the Vanir surrender her to them for punishment. The Vanir refused, claiming their right to protect their own, and viewing Gullveig's survival as proof of their inherent power. This standoff quickly escalated, And what began as a dispute over a single figure erupted into the first great war in the cosmos, the Æsir-Vanir War. Picture the cosmic devastation, gods battling gods, not just for territory, but for fundamental principles. Odin, leading the Æsir, hurled his spear Gungnir over the heads of the Vanir, an ancient ritual declaration of war. The Æsir stormed Vanaheimr, and the Vanir retaliated, unleashing their powerful magic and command over natural forces. The conflict was brutal and prolonged, tearing at the very fabric of the newly established cosmos. Walls of Asgard were breached, lands devastated, and the very stability of the Nine Worlds was threatened by this unprecedented, divine civil war. After a protracted and mutually destructive struggle, both sides realized the futility of continued conflict. Neither could decisively defeat the other without utterly annihilating the cosmos they had helped create. A truce was called, and both tribes agreed to exchange hostages, a solemn pact to ensure lasting peace and foster understanding. This exchange was incredibly significant, as it brought key figures from each side to live among the other. The Vanir sent their most esteemed, Njörður, god of the sea and wealth, and his children, Freya, god of fertility, prosperity, and kingship, and Freyja, goddess of love, beauty, war, and southern magic. In return, the Æsir sent Hrungnir, a swift and handsome god, and Mimir, a being of immense wisdom. This exchange, particularly the arrival of Njörður, Freya, and Freyja in Asgard, fundamentally enriched the Æsir's understanding of the cosmos. The Vanir brought with them their profound knowledge of magic, fertility, and prophecy, intertwining their ancient wisdom with the Æsir's strength and order. The Æsir-Vanir War, though devastating, ultimately led to a cosmic integration. The wisdom and nurturing essence of the Vanir, combined with the power and order of the Æsir, created a more complete and resilient divine force, ready to face the ever-present threat of the giants and the looming shadow of Ragnarök. The Norse gods, unlike those in many other mythologies, were not born perfect or unified. Their very cohesion was forged in the fires of conflict and the spirit of compromise. The walls of Asgard, a bargain with a builder, with the devastating Æsir-Vanir War finally concluded, a fragile, hard-won peace settled upon the cosmos. The two tribes of gods had integrated, their combined wisdom and power now residing in Asgard, the realm of the Æsir. Yet this divine stronghold, magnificent as it was, bore the scars of the recent conflict. Its walls, crucial for defending the gods from their ancient enemies, the giants, lay in disrepair. This vulnerability was a grave concern, for the giants in Jotunheim were a constant, looming threat, ever ready to challenge the newly established order. It was at this critical juncture that a mysterious, unnamed builder, a master craftsman of immense skill, arrived in Asgard. He was a figure of quiet confidence, and he approached the gods with an audacious proposal. He offered to rebuild and fortify the walls of Asgard, making them impenetrable within the span of just one winter. His price, however, was equally audacious. He demanded the goddess Freyja, one of the esteemed Vanir hostages, known for her beauty and powerful magic, along with the sun and the moon themselves. The gods were aghast. To lose Freyja, or the very light-givers of the cosmos, was unthinkable. Yet the urgency of Asgard's defense weighed heavily upon them. In their deliberations, Loki, the cunning and often duplicitous trickster, saw an opportunity. He advised the gods to accept the builder's terms, but with a crucial caveat. They would agree to the impossible deadline of one winter, but only if the builder completed the work entirely on his own, without the aid of any other person. He believed this condition would ensure the builder's failure, allowing the gods to renege on their exorbitant promise. The gods, swayed by Loki's cleverness and desperate for strong defenses, agreed to these revised terms. The builder, however, had his own secret weapon. As the winter winds began to bite, the builder began his monumental task, and it immediately became clear that he was not, in fact, working alone. He had the aid of his magnificent stallion Svadilfari, whose name means unlucky traveler. Svadilfari possessed incredible strength and speed, Working tirelessly, hauling immense boulders and stones with superhuman, or rather super-equine efficiency, the builder and his horse worked with such astonishing speed that, as the final days of winter approached, the walls of Asgard were nearing completion. They were stronger, taller, and more formidable than the gods had ever imagined. Panic began to ripple through Asgard. The gods, realizing they were about to lose Freya, the sun, and the moon, turned their wrath upon Loki. It was his cunning advice that had led them to this impossible predicament. They demanded that he find a way to prevent the builder from completing his task by the deadline, or face dire consequences himself. Loki, ever resourceful when his own skin was on the line, had to devise a plan, and fast. As the very last night of winter dawned, with only one more massive boulder needed to complete the final section of the wall, Loki put his plan into action. He transformed himself into a beautiful mare in heat, and galloped alluringly past the hard-working Svadilfari. The stallion, distracted by the mare's presence, broke free from his work and gave chase. Loki, in his mare form, led Svadilfari on a wild, all-night chase through the wilderness, ensuring the vital work of hauling the final stone would not be completed before dawn. When the sun rose, the walls were agonizingly close to completion, but they were not finished. The builder, enraged by the deception, finally revealed his true nature. He was not a simple craftsman, but a frost giant in disguise, planning to secure such valuable prizes from the gods through trickery. Enraged by Loki's sabotage and exposed in his true form, the giant threatened Asgard with his full power. But before he could unleash his fury, Thor, returning at last from a journey to the east, arrived. With a single mighty swing of his hammer Mjolnir, Thor struck the giant down, ending the threat. The walls of Asgard were now complete, albeit without the final stone, making them just sort of the builder's audacious promise. The gods had escaped their terrible bargain thanks to Loki's ingenious, if mischievous, intervention. And as for Loki's all-night escapade as a mare with Svadilfari, it would have an unexpected and rather unique consequence for the trickster god, one that would introduce a very special eight-legged steed into the Norse cosmos. This incident, born of necessity and deceit, cemented Asgard's defenses, but also demonstrated the gods' willingness to bend rules, and Loki's unparalleled ability to both create and solve problems, often through unconventional means. Loki's strange offspring, the birth of Sleipnir, and other monstrous children. Loki, the cunning trickster, had saved the gods from their ill-fated bargain with the giant builder. Yet, his solution, though effective, came with a uniquely Loki-esque twist. From his wild all-night chase in the form of a mare with the giant stallion, Svadilfari, an astonishing and unexpected birth occurred. Loki gave birth to a magnificent eight-legged colt named Sleipnir. Sleipnir was no ordinary horse. With his 8 powerful legs, he was the fastest steed in all the 9 worlds, capable of traversing land, sea, and even air, carrying his rider between realms with unparalleled speed. Loki, ever the opportunist, and never one to let a useful creation go to waste, promptly presented Sleipnir to Odin. The Allfather immediately recognized the extraordinary value of such a mount and gladly accepted him, making Sleipnir his personal steed, a loyal companion who would carry Odin across the cosmos, even into the very halls of hell. This bizarre, yet ultimately beneficial, birth further cemented Loki's strange and often contradictory role within the Æsir pantheon, a source of both immense trouble and invaluable, if unconventional, solutions. But Sleipnir was not Loki's only unusual child, nor his most infamous. Even before this incident, Loki had fathered a trio of monstrous and world-altering beings with the giantess Angerbotha in the grim ironwood forest of Jotunheim. These offspring were not merely large or strong, they were forces of chaos and destruction, each destined to play a pivotal, cataclysmic role in the events of Ragnarök. First among them was Fenrir, the colossal wolf. From the moment of his birth, Fenrir grew at an alarming rate, quickly surpassing any wolf seen before. His jaws were immense, capable of swallowing armies, and his strength seemed to know no bounds. The gods, observing his terrifying growth and a prophecy foretelling his role in Odin's doom, grew increasingly fearful. They attempted to bind him with chains, but Fenrir easily snapped even the strongest of them. Finally, they commissioned the dwarves to forge Gleipnir, a magical, impossibly thin ribbon woven from impossible things. The sound of a cat's footfall, the beard of a woman, the roots of a mountain, the sinews of a bear, the breath of a fish, and the spittle of a bird. Deceived by the gods into believing it was a test of his strength, Fenrir allowed himself to be bound, but only after Tyr, the god of justice and war, bravely placed his hand in Fenrir's mouth as a pledge. When Fenrir realized the trick, he bit off his hand, forever marking the god, yet securing the binding. Fenrir was then chained to a rock, his jaws held open by a sword, until the day of Ragnarök, when he is destined to break free and devour Odin himself. Next was Jörmungandr, the Midgard serpent, also known as the World Serpent. Cast into the vast ocean surrounding Midgard by Odin, due to her monstrous size and ominous prophecy, Jörmungandr grew to such immense proportions that she eventually encircled the entire world, biting her own tail. This was the same serpent we spoke of earlier, her presence a constant, silent threat to humanity's realm. Her coils churned the seas, creating great tides and storms, and her venom was deadly beyond measure. She was destined to rise from the depths at Ragnarök, spewing poison, and engage in a final mutually destructive battle with Thor, her fated adversary. Finally, there was Hel, the goddess of the dead, born with a body half beautiful flesh and half decaying corpse. Her appearance reflected her domain, the cold, misty, and gloomy realm of Helheim, located beneath one of Yggdrasil's roots in Niflheim. Odin cast her into this chilling realm, granting her authority over those who died of sickness, old age, or were not glorious warriors. Hel's realm was not a place of torment like some other afterlives, but a desolate, often cheerless abode where souls dwelled in quiet stasis, cut off from the vibrant worlds above. Her very existence symbolized the inescapable finality of death for many, and her vast, silent halls would swell with the countless dead as Ragnarök approached, ready to march forth. These three children, born of Loki's wild, chaotic nature and a giantess, embody the primal, untamed forces that constantly threaten the order established by the Æsir. Their very existence, bound or banished, serves as a ticking clock, a prophecy woven into the fabric of the cosmos from the very beginning. They are a testament to the fact that even divine order is constantly shadowed by the raw, untamed power of chaos awaiting its destined resurgence. Asgard's golden age and the seeds of discord. Asgard, now fortified by its magnificent walls and enriched by the wisdom of the Vanir gods, entered a period of relative peace and unparalleled prosperity. This was, in many ways, the golden age of the Æsir, a time when their power solidified, their halls glittered, and the cosmos seemed to hum with a newfound harmony. The gods, with Odin at their head, reveled in their strength and the order they had established. Feasts were plentiful in Valhalla and Bilskirnir, the hall of Thor. Laws were laid down, and the arts of war and craftsmanship flourished. The Æsir dedicated themselves to maintaining the cosmic order. Thor, the mightiest among them, tirelessly patrolled the borders of Midgard and Asgard, his hammer Mjolnir ever ready to smite any giants who dared to encroach upon their realms. Odin, seated on his high throne at Kithskolf, from which he could see into all 9 worlds, constantly sought knowledge and wisdom, sacrificing an eye for a drink from Mimir's well, and acquiring the runes, the very secrets of magic and writing. Freyja, the beautiful Vanir goddess, brought her profound understanding of Sather, a powerful and often mysterious form of magic that allowed for prophecy, enchantment, and manipulation of destiny. This era saw the construction of many of the grand halls and iconic landmarks of Asgard. Valhalla, Odin's glorious hall for fallen warriors, grew in splendor, constantly filled with the echoing sounds of feasting and the clashing of training blades. Other gods, like Baldr, the beloved god of light and purity, and Frigg, Odin's wise queen and goddess of motherhood, solidified their benevolent roles, contributing to the sense of balance and well-being that pervaded Asgard. However, even in this era of glory, the seeds of future discord and inevitable doom were subtly being sown. The integration of the Vanir, while beneficial, wasn't without its tensions. The incident with Gulveig, the very spark of the Æsir-Vanir war, served as a stark reminder of the potential for internal strife and the lure of destructive desires like greed, symbolized by her name, Gold Might. Though peace was made, the memory of that conflict lingered beneath the surface. More significantly, the growing presence and unpredictable nature of Loki continued to be a simmering threat to Asgard's stability. While he had proven himself invaluable on numerous occasions saving Freyja, the sun, and the moon from the builder giant, his methods were often deceitful, his motives ambiguous, and his actions increasingly self-serving or even malicious. To his offspring, the monstrous Fenrir, Jörmungandr, and Hel were already powerful symbols of chaos, bound or banished, but destined to break free. The gods were constantly aware of the prophecies surrounding these children, and this awareness bred a quiet anxiety, a knowledge that their golden age was ultimately finite. Furthermore, the very act of creation from Ymir's body, while forming a structured cosmos, had left the primordial forces of Jotunheim, the land of the giants, as a formidable and ever-present external threat. Though protected by Asgard's walls and Thor's hammer, the giants resented the gods, viewing them as usurpers of the cosmic order that had begun with their ancestor. Their presence was a constant reminder of the inherent conflict that lay at the heart of the Norse worldview, an eternal struggle between the forces of order, Æsir, and chaos, giants. This golden age, therefore, was not one of naive bliss, but rather a complex period of growth and consolidation, always underscored by an underlying awareness of fate and the inevitability of the great cosmic cycle. The gods built, reveled, and ruled, but they did so with the knowledge that their achievements, grand as they were, are merely an interlude before the ultimate, fated clash that would test their very existence. The stage was now set, not just for life, but for the grand final drama that would unravel everything they had meticulously built. The blinding of Baldr, innocence, betrayal, and the beginning of the end. The golden age of Asgard, for all its splendor, was built upon a foundation of simmering anxieties and ancient prophecies. The gods knew, deep in their bones, that the glorious stability they had forged was destined to crumble, culminating in the cataclysm of Ragnarök. But the true harbinger of this approaching doom was not a giant's invasion or a cosmic monster's rampage. It was a seemingly innocent act born of jealousy and orchestrated by the very trickster who often saved them, Loki. The target of this insidious plot was Baldr, the beloved son of Odin and Frigg, renowned throughout the 9 worlds for his beauty, wisdom, and radiant purity. Baldr was the embodiment of light and goodness in the cosmos, so fair that flowers would bend to gaze upon him as he passed. His very presence brought joy and dispelled shadows. However, Baldr began to suffer from terrible, prophetic dreams, visions of his own imminent death. These dreams, recurring and vivid, filled him with a profound sense of foreboding. Distraught and deeply worried for her cherished son, Frigg, Odin's wise queen and goddess of motherhood, resolved to protect him. She embarked on a monumental task, traversing all of creation, begging every single thing in the cosmos to swear an oath never to harm Baldr. From the mighty oak to the smallest blade of grass, from fire to water, from iron to stone, from every beast of the forest to every bird of the air, and even from diseases and poisons, everything willingly swore the solemn oath. Each element, each living creature, each natural phenomenon pledged never to inflict harm upon the beloved Baldr. Frigg returned to Asgard, relieved and triumphant, believing her son to be utterly invulnerable. The gods, overjoyed at Baldr's newfound immunity, celebrated by creating a new sport. They would hurl weapons of all kinds at Baldr, or strike him with axes and spears, and watch in amusement as every single projectile, every blow, harmlessly bounced away, or fell limp to the ground. It was a testament to Frigg's diligent efforts and Baldr's seemingly impenetrable protection. Yet there was one tiny, unassuming plant that Frigg had overlooked in her cosmic canvassing. It was the mistletoe, a small, seemingly insignificant, parasitic shrub that grew on trees. Frigg deemed it too young, too small, too harmless to ever pose a threat, and thus she did not ask it to swear the oath. This seemingly trivial oversight would prove to be the fatal flaw in Baldr's armor, a crack in the cosmic weave that Loki, ever observant and malicious, was quick to discover. Says, Loki, always feeling like an outsider, often resentful of the gods' joy and Baldr's universal adoration, seethed with jealousy. He could not bear the sight of Baldr's invulnerability, or the gods' gleeful sport. Disguising himself as an old woman, Loki approached Frigg and cunningly drew the secret from her, the single, solitary weakness of the mistletoe. This was all the information the treacherous god needed. With the knowledge secured, Loki sought out Hertha, or Hod, Baldr's twin brother. Hertha was a blind god, quiet and often withdrawn, who usually sat on the sidelines during the gods' revelries, unable to participate in their new game of throwing things at Baldr. Loki, feigning kindness, approached Hertha and offered to guide his hand, to allow him to join in the fun. He placed a small dart, fashioned from the seemingly innocuous mistletoe, into Hertha's hand. Unknowing of the deadly significance of the plant, Hertha, guided by Loki, hurled the mistletoe dart towards his brother. The dart flew true, piercing Baldr. Without the oath, the mistletoe passed through his invulnerable skin, striking him down instantly. The joyous shouts of the gods instantly died. A profound silence fell over Asgard, followed by an agonizing wail of despair. The brightest light in Asgard, the very symbol of its goodness and purity, lay dead. This was not a death in battle, but a death by treachery, an act that shocked the cosmos to its core. The gods were unable to retaliate immediately, for they were in a sacred place, a place of peace, and shedding blood there would desecrate it. But their grief was immense, their sorrow palpable. The death of Baldr was more than just the loss of a beloved god. It was a profound cosmic omen. It was the first truly irreparable break in the harmony of Asgard, a clear sign that the delicate balance of the 9 worlds was shifting irreversibly towards its fated doom. The purity of their golden age had been stained by betrayal, and the path to Ragnarök, once a distant prophecy, now lay clear before them, hastened by the cruel machinations of Loki. The Æsir had experienced war and loss before, but this was different. The murder of innocence, an act that would plunge them into an even darker age of sorrow and cosmic imbalance. The mourning of Baldr and Loki's unforgivable cruelty. The sorrow that gripped Asgard was absolute, a profound silence echoing through the once joyous halls. Baldr, the brightest of the gods, lay lifeless, struck down by a betrayal orchestrated by Loki. The gods, paralyzed by grief and the sanctity of their dwelling, could not immediately seek vengeance. Their immediate focus shifted to the desperate hope of retrieving Baldr from the clutches of Hel, the grim ruler of the underworld. Frigg, Baldr's mother, her heart shattered, stepped forward to make a desperate plea. She asked for a volunteer, someone brave enough to undertake the perilous journey to Helheim, the land of the dead, to implore its queen, Hel, to release Baldr. The journey was fraught with danger, a descent into the cold, misty depths where only the dead truly belonged. It was a mission that required immense courage and unwavering devotion. Hermodr the Bold, another son of Odin, stepped forward without hesitation. He mounted Sleipnir, Odin's magnificent eight-legged steed, the very horse born from Loki's shape-shifting escapade, for only Sleipnir could traverse the treacherous path between worlds, leaping over the high fence surrounding Helheim. For 9 days and 9 nights, Hermodr rode through deep, dark valleys, so dense with mist and shadow that he could see nothing. He crossed the Gale River on the bridge Galabru, guarded by the giantess Mathgada, whose solemn duty was to record all who passed into the realm of the dead. Finally, Hermodr arrived at Helheim's gate and rode into the great hall. There, he found Baldr seated on a place of honor, looking pale but alive within the dominion of the dead. He approached Hel, the half-beautiful, half-corpse ruler, and pleaded passionately for Baldr's return, recounting the immense grief that afflicted all the gods and indeed the entire cosmos. Hel, ever grim and bound by the laws of her realm, agreed to a condition. She declared that Baldr would be released from Helheim if every single thing in the 9 worlds, living or dead, animate or inanimate, would weep for him. If even one thing refused to shed tears, Baldr would remain forever in her domain. It was a seemingly simple, yet cosmically impossible, task. Hermodr returned to Asgard with Hel's message, igniting a flicker of hope amidst the gods' despair. Immediately, the Æsir dispatched messengers throughout all the 9 worlds, relaying Hel's demand. And to the astonishment of all, every single being, every animal, every plant, every stone, every river, every mountain, the entire cosmos began to weep. The tears flowed like torrents, staining the earth, dripping from leaves, a universal lament for the beloved god of light, of light. The sheer magnitude of this collective grief was a testament to Baldr's profound goodness and the deep love felt for him by all creation. The gods watched, hope swelling in their hearts as the universal weeping seemed to guarantee Baldr's return. But as the last messenger delivered their report, a single exception was noted. They found a giantess named Thirk, huddled in a cave. When asked to weep for Baldr, her response was chillingly cold and defiant. Thirk will weep dry tears, she declared, her voice devoid of sorrow. For Baldr's balefire, lifeless or living, the old man's son brought me no benefit. Let Hel hold what she has. The gods instantly knew this was no ordinary giantess. Such an utterly heartless refusal, such malicious joy in Baldr's demise, could only belong to one being. Thirk was Loki in disguise. He had taken on this form to prevent Baldr's release, to ensure that the light of Asgard remained extinguished. His hatred and jealousy had driven him to this ultimate act of cruelty, deliberately sabotaging the gods' last, desperate hope. This final unforgivable act pushed the gods beyond the brink of their immense patience. Loki had not merely caused Baldr's death. He had mocked their grief, ensured their pain, and deliberately sabotaged the very balance of the cosmos. His trickery had gone from mischievous to utterly malevolent, crossing a line from which there was no return. This was the true turning point, the act that solidified Loki's fate as an enemy of the Æsir and ensured that the final, devastating chapter of the cosmos would soon begin to unfold. His days of walking freely among the gods were now definitively over. The binding of Loki, punishment and prophecy fulfilled, the gods' grief over Baldr's death and Loki's subsequent malicious sabotage in the guise of Thirk turned swiftly into cold, righteous fury. This was no longer just another of Loki's pranks. It was an act of unforgivable malice that had directly plunged Asgard into sorrow and set the definitive countdown to Ragnarök in motion. Loki had crossed a line, and for this he would face a punishment more severe and lasting than any god had ever endured. Loki, sensing the shift in the god's mood and knowing his treachery was exposed, attempted to flee. He sought refuge, not among the giants, but in a hidden house in the mountains, transforming himself into a salmon to hide in a waterfall. But the gods, particularly the all-seeing Odin and the relentless Thor, were not to be outwitted this time. Kvasir, the wisest of all beings, deduced Loki's hiding place. The Æsir hunted him down, and after a fierce struggle, Thor finally captured him in his salmon form. Once captured, Loki was brought before the gods for judgment. Their verdict was unanimous. He must be bound, just as his monstrous children, Fenrir and Jörmungandr, had been. His punishment was designed to be agonizing, symbolic, and inescapable. The gods brought two of Loki's other sons, Vali and Nari, or Nafi, who were not of the same monstrous lineage as Fenrir, Jörmungandr, and Hel, and thus had not been bound or banished. In a horrific act, the gods transformed Vali into a ravenous wolf. Driven by an uncontrollable primal rage, this wolf son tore apart his own brother, Nari. It was with Nari's intestines that the gods bound Loki. These were no ordinary bonds. As soon as the intestines touched Loki, they transformed into iron chains, forged by ancient magic and imbued with an unbreakable strength. They secured him to 3 sharp rocks, deep within a dark cave. One rock was beneath his shoulders, another beneath his loins, and a third beneath his hams, stretching his body in an agonizing posture that offered no relief. This cruel binding was not the end of his torment. To ensure his perpetual agony, the giantess Skathi, seeking vengeance for her father Thorngesi, whose death Loki had a hand in, placed a venomous serpent directly above Loki's head. This serpent continuously dripped potent venom onto Loki's face, causing him excruciating pain. The burning poison scalded his flesh, a torment he could not escape. Loki's loyal wife, Sigyn, ever faithful despite his monstrous actions, remained by his side. With immense love and dedication, she held a wooden bowl above his head, patiently catching the dripping venom, preventing it from touching him. However, when the bowl became full, Sigyn had to turn away to empty it. In those brief moments, the venom would fall upon Loki's face, causing him to writhe and convulse in agony. His struggles were so violent that they caused the very earth to tremble, manifesting as earthquakes in Midgard. Loki's binding in the cave was more than just a punishment. It was a profound prophetic event. It sealed his fate, ensuring that he would remain imprisoned until the very last days of the world. His constant struggles, his agonizing writhing, served as a grim reminder of the chaos he embodied and the inevitable future. His screams and the earth's tremors were a prelude to the greater cataclysm yet to come. This event marks a crucial turning point in the Norse mythological cycle. With Baldr dead and Loki bound, the final, irreversible phase leading to Ragnarök had begun. The forces of order had temporarily subdued chaos, but at a terrible cost, and with the full knowledge that their victory was temporary. The greatest antagonist was now contained, but his eventual release and his role in the final battle were foretold. The world moved into an age of deepening shadows, awaiting the cosmic winter, the breaking of bonds, and the final clash that would reset existence itself. The vibrant golden era of Asgard was definitively over, replaced by a somber awareness of approaching doom. Fimbulwinter and the breaking of bonds, the dawn of Ragnarök, with Baldr consigned to Helheim and Loki, bound in his agonizing prison, a profound shift settled over the 9 worlds. The gods' vibrant golden age had long passed, replaced by an era marked by a growing sense of foreboding and the grim acceptance of an inevitable, fated end. The world was now hurtling towards its ultimate destiny, Ragnarök, the twilight of the gods, the cataclysm that would consume and reset the cosmos. The first and most terrifying clear sign of its imminent arrival was the great Fimbulwinter. Fimbulwinter, meaning great winter or mighty winter, was no ordinary season. It was a relentless 3-year-long winter without any intervening summer. Snow fell continuously from all directions, fierce winds howled across every land, and the sun's warmth seemed to vanish entirely. The once fertile fields of Midgard froze solid, crops failed, and the once lush forests turned to desolate snow-laden husks. This prolonged, bitter cold brought famine and desolation, making life incredibly harsh for humanity. The absence of the sun and the perpetual chill were a direct consequence of the cosmic imbalance caused by Baldr's death and Loki's imprisonment. The very light of the cosmos dimmed in grief, and the forces of order struggled to maintain their former vigor. The Fimbulwinter not only ravaged the physical world, but also corrupted the moral fabric of society. The extreme hardship led to a profound breakdown of human and divine bonds. Brother would fight brother, fathers would slay sons, and families would tear each other apart for meager resources. Oaths and promises, once sacred, were broken without hesitation. Love and kinship withered, replaced by brutal self-preservation and rampant greed. This moral decay, prophesied as one of the clearest signs of Ragnarök, demonstrated that the coming cataclysm was not just a physical event, but a spiritual and ethical collapse, mirroring the growing chaos in the higher realms. Following the Fimbulwinter, other dreadful signs began to manifest. The very chains of creation began to fray. Loki, tormented beyond measure in his cave, would writhe so violently that the earth itself would groan and tremble, giving rise to massive earthquakes that shook all the worlds. These tremors would be so powerful that they would snap the mighty chains that had held Fenrir, the colossal wolf, captive since the gods' trickery. The sound of his monstrous howl, freed at last, would echo across the realms, a terrifying herald of the doom he was destined to bring. With Fenrir loose, his brother, the Midgard serpent, Jörmungandr, would also stir from his millennia-long slumber in the deep ocean. His immense coils, which had encircled Midgard for so long, would begin to writhe and churn the seas, causing colossal tidal waves that crashed over the land, submerging coastlines, and further devastating the world. He would heave himself onto land, exhaling potent venom that poisoned the air and the waters, preparing for his fated confrontation with Thor. Even the celestial bodies, the sun, Sol, and the moon, Yeni, established by the gods to bring order to the heavens, would now be directly threatened. The great wolves, Skurll and Hati, who had chased them across the sky since the dawn of time, would finally catch their prey. Skurll would devour the sun, plunging the world into perpetual darkness, while Hati would swallow the moon, extinguishing the last celestial light. The stars themselves would then fall from the sky, raining down like fiery tears upon the devastated earth. The cosmos, once illuminated and ordered, would descend into a profound, chilling gloom, a twilight that presaged the ultimate end. Amidst this rising chaos, the very ground would rupture. From the deepest pits of Niflheim, the realm of the dead, ships made from the fingernails and toenails of the deceased, led by Hel herself, would sail forth. And from Muspelheim, the fiery realm, Surtur the fire giant, would ride forth with his blazing sword, leading legions of fire giants to join the destructive forces. All these great primordial powers, unleashed and unchained, would converge, gathering on the vast plain of Vigritha, destined for the final, cataclysmic confrontation with the gods. The breaking of these primordial bonds, the unleashing of ancient monsters, and the plunge into eternal twilight were the irrefutable signs. Ragnarök was no longer a distant prophecy to be feared, but a living, unfolding reality. The time for sorrow had passed. The time for the final, desperate struggle for existence had arrived. The gods, knowing their fate, would prepare to march to battle, not with hope of victory, but with the grim determination to face their destiny with honor. Ragnarök, the final battle and the world reborn. The omens had manifested, the Fimbulwinter had ravaged the lands, and the great bonds holding cosmic chaos at bay had snapped. The Midgard serpent thrashed in the seas, Fenrir howled with unbridled hunger, and the sun and moon had been swallowed, plunging the realms into a terrifying twilight. The time had come for Ragnarök, the doom of the gods, not merely an end, but the destined ultimate climax of the Norse cosmic cycle. From all corners of the nine worlds, the forces of chaos converged upon the vast plain of Vigritha, said to be 100 leagues in every direction. From Muspelheim rode Surtur, blazing with an unholy fire, leading his fiery sons, their swords illuminating the gloom. From the east, the ship Naglfar, crafted from the nails of the dead, sailed forth, captained by the giant Rim, carrying legions of frost giants. Nines. From the north, Loki, finally freed from his torturous binding, led the forces of Helheim legions of the dead, and the powerful fire giant Garm, a monstrous hound, burst from his chains at Nipperhelia, joining the fray. And in the very heart of the storm, Fenrir the wolf ran wild, his immense jaws agape, one jaw scraping the sky, the other scraping the earth, eager to devour all. Jörmungandr, the Midgard serpent, heaved herself onto land, spewing venom that poisoned the very air and sea. To meet this overwhelming tide of destruction, the gods of Asgard, the Æsir and Vanir, assembled for their final valiant stand. Despite knowing the prophecies of their individual fates, they marched to battle with grim resolve and honor, led by Odin, the All-Father. He donned his golden helmet and rode forth on Sleipnir, his spear Gungnir aloft, prepared to face his ultimate destiny. Beside him rode Thor, the protector of Midgard, wielding Mjolnir, ready for his fated clash with his ancient nemesis. Freyr charged into battle against Surtur, a valiant figure despite lacking his sword, which he had given away for love. Tov, even with his missing hand, fought bravely, fated to meet his end against Gar. Heimdall, the watchful guardian of Bifrost, sounded his Gellerhorn, signaling the beginning of the final conflict before engaging in a mutual killing blow with Loki. The battle itself was a maelstrom of cosmic proportions. Flames erupted, ice splintered, and the very ground convulsed with the force of divine and monstrous blows. Odin, leading the charge, courageously faced Fenrir, the wolf destined to consume him. In a tragic, fated moment, Fenrir swallowed the All-Father whole, ending the reign of the wisest of gods. Immediately, Vidar, Odin's silent son, avenged his father. Wearing a special shoe forged over centuries, he planted his foot in Fenrir's lower jaw, grabbed the upper jaw, and tore the wolf's mouth apart, slaying the beast but fulfilling the cycle of sacrifice. Thor, meanwhile, engaged in his desperate, furious struggle with Jörmungandr. After a titanic clash, Thor finally struck the Midgard serpent down with Mjolnir, but the victory was short-lived. Having inhaled the serpent's lethal venom during the battle, Thor walked 9 paces before collapsing, succumbing to the poison, a noble, tragic end for the defender of humanity. Almost all the other gods met their fated ends. Freyr fell to Surtur's fiery sword, Tyr and Garm slew each other, and Loki and Heimdall exchanged fatal blows. As the gods and monsters fell, Surtur, the fiery giant from Muspelheim, unleashed his ultimate power. His flames engulfed the entire cosmos, consuming all the 9 worlds. Yggdrasil, the mighty world tree, shuddered and burned, its branches and roots finally succumbing to the overwhelming inferno. The earth itself sank beneath the waves, consumed by a cleansing fire, then swallowed by the vast boiling ocean. This was the ultimate destruction, the complete annihilation of the old order, leaving behind nothing but a profound silence and an endless, formless void, reminiscent of the Ginnungagap from which it all began. But Ragnarök in the Norse worldview was never truly an end. It was the necessary destruction preceding a new creation, a cosmic reset. From the depths of the receding waters, a new, fertile earth would slowly emerge, green and beautiful, cleansed of the old sorrows and conflicts. A few gods, fated to survive the cataclysm, would return. Vidar and Vali, sons of Odin, would find their way back. Mothi and Magni, Thor's sons, would survive, inheriting their father's mighty hammer Mjolnir. And from Helheim, Baldr and Hertha, the innocent god of light, and his blind brother, would return to the renewed world, free from their old burdens, symbolizing a fresh start. They would sit together, recalling the wisdom of the old world and discovering the golden tablets where the old laws had been written, hinting at continuity and remembrance. More importantly, two humans, Lif, life, and Liftrosir, life thriver, or striving for life, would have survived the cataclysm by hiding deep within the branches of Yggdrasil or in Mimir's forest, sustained by morning dew. From them, a new generation of humanity would arise, populating the new world. The new cosmos would be a place of renewed purity and peace, free from the giants and the ancient conflicts. The surviving gods would gather, a smaller, wiser pantheon, to begin anew. The sun's daughter, no less radiant than her mother, would rise to light the new sky, ensuring the continuation of cosmic order and the rhythm of time. Ragnarök, therefore, is not a tale of despair, but one of cyclical renewal. It embodies the powerful Norse belief that creation is born from destruction, that even in the most profound endings, the seeds of new life and new beginnings are always present. The entire Norse creation myth, from the initial collision of fire and ice to the ultimate destruction and rebirth, illustrates a deep, resonant understanding of existence as an ongoing, interconnected, and eternally regenerating process. Food. And so, the great cosmic story concludes only to implicitly begin anew.